What's going on tonight? I'm responding to a comment. It's some guy in the chat. I mean, in my comment, above my post section about basically promotion to my book on Amazon. Also, brogeniuses.com, Millionaire Savings Plan. Basically, I'm a advocate for millionaires. Okay, this is a you know basically future millionaires channel. So I'm definitely belief that you can achieve that successful goal of becoming a millionaire. Now, statistically, the statistics are as such. Like I'll run the statistics as far as I still have them saved. So just to kind of put things in perspective. So first things first, if you're not married, statistically, 76% of all millionaires are married. Okay. So that's one thing. And out of black people, out of 100 black people, only eight out of 100 black people statistically are millionaires. Okay. So it's like a one a one to looks like a 1 to 82 ratio, actually 92 ratio. One out of 92 um is a millionaire. So it's it's not that many, right? But it is some. It's certain places that basically there's more millionaires than others. Like the most millionaires are in New York, and then outside of New York, California, primarily Orange County. Basically California is good concentration of millionaires in the state of California. Outside of California is Illinois, mainly Chicago. Chicago's like a miniature New York. So they have like basically the version of Manhattan in Chicago is it's called the Gold Coast. Anybody from Chicago, they know about the Gold Coast, and basically that's where a few of your billionaires reside, in the Gold Coast. You see your middle-aged white dudes that delayed fatherhood. And they're like in their late 50s, maybe even early 60s, and they literally have wives. Basically their wives carry pushing their stroller, and their wives are like in their late 20s, you know, possibly early 30s, and they don't have to worry about anything. They, basically they're they're a wife of most likely someone of a high net worth individual, and they don't have to worry about anything. Basically, they're housewives, and they could have unlimited Amazon orders. They can order anything they want, and they can pretty much do anything they want and buy anything that they want for their child without having to worry about anything. They have almost like uh royal treatment because they can go to the spa anytime they want. They can meet for lunch with their girlfriends anytime they want. They could have spa days, unlimited, basically pampered treatment. Um, After the baby probably gets older, they'll move somewhere in the suburbs in a big giant mansion, and get away from the city life. But yeah, these guys, they're all in the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast is where they have these $15 million um condos that are in $1 billion buildings. The building that the condo was in is worth over $1 billion. Yeah, that's the Chicago they don't want you to know though. See, Chicago. I'm in Chicago. I'm back in Chicago actually. I sold my house. I'm not in Gary, Indiana anymore, and I feel quite privileged. It's a short temporary stay, most likely. But you know, yeah, it's a lot of money in Chicago, a lot of money in Illinois, a lot of millionaires, few billionaires. Okay, but the whole point is, yeah, 8% of millionaires in the U.S. are black. Okay, the majority of millionaires in the US, 88%, have a college degree. If you don't have a college degree, again, you're not married, okay? You're going to have a hard time, okay? Nearly 2 out of 3 millionaires have a graduate degree, okay? Or actually, no, it says have graduated from a public university. Okay, so 2 out of 3, okay? Um, and this is where it says about doctorates and masters. So 52% of millionaires, nearly half, have a master's and doctorate degree. Your Jordan Petersons, your, usually if you got a doctorate degree or something or a master's, you could be a professional speaker. You can author books and be very credible because you have degrees by your titles, by your name. You could do podcasts, you could do interviews, you could, like I said, Jordan Peterson, what's the other dude that he's kind of similar to Jordan Peterson. He's not as liberal as Jordan Peterson. He's like kind of middle of the road. I forgot his name, but he talks about basically he's a young male, um kind of like millennial focused, older boomer. I think he's a boomer. uh I forgot the name of him, but comes from that stock. Basically a lot of people that you think about, like, lawyers, they they're included in that. So, like, yeah, 50% of advanced degree holders are millionaires. Okay, so 1% overall are millionaires. 1% of Americans in general, just out of all of the categories of people in America, 1% are millionaires. So one out of 100. Okay, um, so yeah, it's very possible. Okay, I just, first of all, I mean, the guy in the comment section, he don't really believe it's possible, and I understand that feeling. You get beat down, you get, basically, capitalism has, if you're on the bottom, which most people are on the bottom, basically, of the financial hierarchy, right? You got the top elites that's on top. Some people believe that they're appointed by reptilians and Illuminati and all of that type of shit. Um, it's controlled, or fixed. It's a fixed system of people that hire elites from secret societies that um push people in certain um areas in life. I don't necessarily think that that's somewhat might not. I think it is some truth to that. I do believe so. That does has some type of influence, but it could just be you're the descendant of someone that made some very good business decisions. Like, for example, I mean, I was able to enjoy some of the wealth that my grandfather, worked for, basically being an entrepreneur, being a black billionaire. I mean, not a billionaire, but a millionaire, in the 70s and 80s. I didn't necessarily understand I was privileged until I got older. But how about if your parents are millionaires, they're successful entrepreneurs, running a business or a factory or something like that, you're gonna work for them. And then they're gonna teach you the business. You're gonna probably be some type of assistant manager of the factory or the plant or whatever. You're gonna learn the ropes, and then basically over a period of time, you're going to be stamped in the office as the head of, this factory or company name, and the president. And it's a family business. A lot of companies in the United States, and even some of the best stocks to invest in, are companies that are family businesses. Okay. That's just statistically, that's how that goes. Family businesses tend to do well because they tend to care more about the actual business itself, instead of the shareholders. Uh, but that's just one example of why they do well. But I mean, it's like you could just be, the beneficiary of, like, for example, Rockefeller. His son just had to be. All he had to do was just basically be born a Rockefeller. Pretty much, he all he had to do was just basically go to school. He didn't have to worry about any struggle. Like, basically Rockefeller himself, he grew up in poverty. Okay, Rockefeller had to go sell eggs to feed himself and his family. Okay, he had to do that as a little boy. He had to literally go and sell eggs and grow eggs to chickens. He had to grow chickens and ducks and sell duck eggs, and to make money to feed himself and his family. Okay, his son. By the time his son was, running the company and his foundation, basically he was already, basically a billionaire. He's one of the first billionaires in American history. So his son didn't have to want for nothing. He just had to just basically be a good boy, stay out of trouble, and then, be a man and do the same thing, and, finish college and get good grades. It was pretty textbook. And you can really study really well. Like, I remember being in college and university, and I had to worry about a lot of things. Like anybody, average person, I had to pay rent. I had bills. Um, I didn't make enough to just basically, I remember I had one of my first apartments, and I had to pay rent. I had to buy food. It was a lot of worry. Like, basically it was my first time really worrying, because it was a lot of things to worry about. Like being an adult, you got to worry about your health. You don't. I remember having problems, bad dental health. Like I had cavities and stuff, and I didn't have any dental insurance. Didn't have the money to get any dental insurance. That was one of the reasons why I joined the military. Well, actually joined the Navy, but I mean that's a whole nother story. But the thing is like, yeah, I remember that time. That was right after I joined the Navy, when I went my first year away in college. Like the following year, I just ended up joining the Navy. But basically, I remember trying to pay rent, trying to pay credit card bills, and trying to get a car, you know, trying to basically pay this and pay this without any money, buying gas, having to pay to get your car fixed. Well, what if you don't have to worry about all of that? What if you can just, enjoy, like I remember I was in school, man, and I can say this. I'm not the only one who said this, but basically, I remember I used to study and I used to smoke weed. Like I used to do homework and mainly like research and study for a test, smoking weed. And I had some good grades. I had very, very good grades. And it's like, what if you I saw you had like just smoke some weed, man, and go to school. have a good time, no worries. You basically got, a $10,000 a month allowance, and school's paid for, everything is paid for, and you can just you got a brand new car. One of my homies from high school, man, his parents basically gave him a brand new car, like a Mazda, something like a luxury car. Like they just gave it to him. He was playing basketball. He was giving him a little money to play basketball. And I was like, damn, a brand new car. And I had an old car, a really old car, right? And it was like basically, it's levels to this, right? So his father actually had a owned a what do you call those? Like it's not a supermarket. He owned a strip mall. His dad owned a strip mall. He had a cleaners. He was in the business and he was making money. And his mom was like a teacher, so they had some money for him after he went away to college. But the whole thing is, it's like, okay, it's not like he didn't have to worry about money. He had to worry about money. He, worked, we was all working at Sam's Club. And it was like, well, what if you didn't have to work? You didn't have to worry about anything but $10,000 a month coming in your, bank account every month. And if you need a little bit more, a quick telly to the to talk to dad, or mom, and then you got another advance, you got an extra 5 or 10 grand, right? And you just, all you got to do is stay out of trouble, and do your work, and you could just focus on your schoolwork and focus on, outside of school, your girlfriend, or whatever you got going on, and you can have a good time, and you could pass the grades, and then after, over the summer, you helping dad out at the factory. uh y- After you graduate, ultimately you can, get your actual office position at the factory. Then it's the same thing. You stay out of trouble, you got a salary, all while you're living in your mom and dad's mansion. And basically, maybe the guest house, next to the mansion. Okay. You have no worries, right? You have luxury living, luxury car. You don't get an allowance anymore, but basically you have corporate interests and corporate wages by working for your dad's, you know, business. I mean, that's the life that some people have, that just by proxy of that, of course, they they become, rich. They're millionaires, right? By just birth. Now, I mean, the percentage of people that have that reality is about 10%. 10% of individuals have that reality where they just born into it. Some people, they're born into they're not necessarily born into wealth, but basically they're taught, okay? They're kind of like they were given an inheritance, a sizable inheritance, and then they were taught by someone. Like, for example, it's a little bit different. Instead of you being born into some wealth, your, parents basically, they they were successful, and then, they had a business, and then they died, before, at an early age, like, by the time you were 18, your parents died or your dad died. Well, he taught you the business. He taught you business fundamentals, and it, very much educated you on how to run businesses, and basically that's being self-taught, and he left you a little inheritance. And that's about 34% of individuals. Everybody else, they get it out the mud. They are self-made millionaires, right? So 70 about 70 about 65% of individuals, more than half are self-made millionaires. Were not they did not come from any, they didn't get any inheritance, or they didn't get mentorship by their parents, or they they were not self-taught, and they didn't get an inheritance. They basically had to get everything from themselves, to be to make it, right? So I mean, again, yeah, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. I mean, it's people that live in California in the Eastern Corridor, or the Northeastern Corridor, just by owning real estate, they're millionaires. Just the very fact that they have a house that they own in basically a high cost of living area like California, New York, New Jersey, parts of Connecticut, Virginia, Maryland, right? They, just by owning property, just the fact that they merely own property makes them, on paper, on an asset column under real estate assets, they're a millionaire. So just, if you bought a house 20 years ago somewhere in California, the price of real estate 20 years ago, it was still high. It was still high. I remember it. But let's just say 30 to 40 years ago. Let's just say you bought some real estate in New York. It wasn't that expensive back then, and you just held it. And that would be all of what it would have took to become rich. And the same thing goes for places, Chicago, as well as it's different places. If you just own real estate, like just real estate, you would have, basically been a millionaire, by your real estate asset holdings. You know, uh and that goes for anything like collectibles, art, anything, classic cars, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's not like, you couldn't, that's not, those are things that are possible. Another thing is skills, basically skills. Like, for example, I'm gonna tell you, I work with a guy long time ago. This was like 2000, and what was this? 2000. It was about 2015, about 2016. And I was working for Mondelez. It's like a kind of a spinoff of Kraft and Heinz. They make a lot of brands, Oreo cookies, Chips Ahoy. Uh, I was doing I was working as a help desk tech. Okay, basically people walked up from the office. They needed support. They could get instant support, like, basically from going to the Apple store or something like that. Instant tech support. All right. So the other guys I work with, they were, every corporate office in the IT part, or IT department, they have tiers of service. So one of the top tiers of technical support is called basically VIP support. Is basically, you're going to a VIP support, you dealing with all executives from the CEO on down. You dealing with basically high level executives, the top brass of the company. You're dealing with their technical support issues. Now, their situation is different because it's almost like, corporate structures are very similar to kind of like, let's just look at it like a kingdom. Like, you have the president is like the king, and then you have, your knights, your bishops, and all of the such, right? That's like a corporate body, right? Well, those are executives, and they tend to, it's associated with, like, basically, the masters and the lords and the serfs and all of that. The serfs serve the masters, right? The 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 court, the house court, they serve the high members of the court, right? So that's how corporations work. That's how all of them work. You know, and the executives tend to make the most money, right? Okay. Um, and the VIP, they deal with these executives. Okay, they deal with like the CEO, and their job is a lot more entailed. Now, it's not to say that if if you're just a regular technician, you're not going to deal with VIP. You're going to deal with VIP regardless because they're going to need to come in and get some quick service, and the other guys might not be around. The VIP guys might be busy, but the thing is this: um, they got to do a little bit different things. Like they got to get a cell phone, and it has to be they're on call. If the CEO needs some tech support at Sunday night at 3 a.m. and your phone rings and you are VIP support, you have to pick that phone up and you have to make the call and help that CEO get his Outlook back, his Outlook PST file back, like or find it for him the best way you can. And it's like, yeah, like those are the things you got to do with VIP support, and you make they make more money. They tend to make slightly or more money than technical support. I would say it's typically probably close to 100 grand. And they're probably some of the highest people outside of being a technical support manager that are in that tech support space. Like, they make the most money probably second to a manager of a managed services department or group or whatever. So the thing is this guy that worked at Mondelez for VIP support, he basically was a millionaire at one time. He started it's just a local business, just a local nerdy guy that really into computers that figures something out, and that's why I say skills. Okay. um high Highly paid skills can be enough to just make you a millionaire. You learning highly technical skills can be what all you need to become a millionaire. Like, just for example, this guy, I don't remember what his name was. He basically had a hard drive data recovery business, and he he knew how to market it. He knew how to package it. And this was when hard drive recovery was, you had a lot of things going on. You had to take these hard drives apart, and you had to try to fish out the memory in them to get the data off. And it's like this guy knew how to do all of that. Okay. He knew how to either repair a hard drive or do whatever it takes to get that data, because there's tools, there's ways you could do it. The new hard drives, I'm not sure. Okay. The new hard drives, like the little hard drives that have the, like, it look like a damn stick of RAM. I mean, I don't know extensively how they go about that, because that's totally different technology. But back then, everything was just basically, hard drives, these big, thick things where you screw in and plug in a computer, and then it has memory on it. It has data fishes, little small data fishes that spin, store different spools of data. All right, so they go out, and then basically, if they start ticking or something, they become non-functional. Okay, and if you want the data off of it, you're gonna have to send it to what? A data recovery specialist. And it gets into also forensics, and this is where I'm going to go with this. Is like, basically, this guy figured out, okay, I can basically recover data from, okay, look at it like a problem when it comes to business and skills. You look at things like, typically people make money off of solving problems for people, and highly technical problems tend to pay the most, tend to be very lucrative. Well, if your hard drive goes out, what typically happens is people just throw the hard drive away. Well, what if that hard drive has the the last photos of your dead mother? What if they have the last photos of your great grandparents? Maybe if you have the last voicemail message that you got from your mom that's stored on your hard drive. Hell, what if you got your BTC wallet in your hard drive and your hard drive failed? Well, in that situation, you probably not going to throw that hard drive off. I mean, or out. You probably, depending on how much you need that data, like, let's just say your hard drive had, okay, you're an up and coming rapper, and that hard drive has your next album on that hard drive. Well, in that case, you're going to do certain things that it's not just you're going to put the hard drive and store it somewhere and maybe try to do something with it later. You're going to look for what? A data recovery specialist. Okay. And how much does this cost you? This is where it gets complicated. And I know a little bit about this because what the company that I worked for at the time, where I met this guy, we actually paid services. We had outside vendors that and then keep in mind, this was like 2016, 2017. Um, I don't remember the exact year, but the prices are probably more. Okay. Because technology is more complicated, I would say. It probably costs more. But back then, it was like $1,500 to get the corporate data, because sometimes uh, different users would have a hard drive that failed. I remember one of the guys was an exec. He was a manager or exec or one of those. Either one, he was able to get approval because he had like database reports and all kinds of different, financial data on his computer. Hard drive failed. They sent the hard drive off to a hard drive, the basically data recovery specialist. It took them like maybe a couple weeks or maybe a week or two. They basically, they were billed like over $1,500, and they sent a portable hard drive with like an external hard drive with the data on it, and I think the original hard drive or something like that. But yeah, like the portable hard drives that they gave you that had the data on it. Okay, the data that you could retrieve. So the thing is that it's expensive. It is, just think about it, right? You do 10 hard drives a week, and that's just 10, right? You done made $15,000. And just think about it from the perspective of you have no employees. You're a one man army. It's just you have this highly technical skill set, and you make $15,000 a week. Okay, well, this guy wasn't just doing like residential people or consumers. This guy was doing data recovery for lawyers. Okay, let's just imagine this, right? You on trial for murder, and you got contents on your hard drive that's failed. You got an old HP Packer Bell computer with data on it to prove that you wasn't anywhere near the vicinity of the murder. and you got this hard drive that's clicking on this old HP Packer Bell. Well, what are you gonna do? You gonna just throw the computer out? You're on trial for murder. They possibly are looking at charging you for capital murder, i.e., basically the liquid cocktail, the hot shot. And basically this is your basically life is on the line. Well, it is a situation where he was downtown working for basically people, basically lawyers, because lawyers need that data off of that hard drive. Their client's life is on the line. Their client's bank accounts, financial future is on the line. They need that data. This guy had a specialized skill to retrieve data off of non-working hard drives. Nobody can fix a hard drive. Most people don't fix hard drives. I know a little bit about it, but I'm a tech. I've been a tech for almost 20 years. Now, the average person doesn't know how to repair a hard drive nor get data off of a failed hard drive. And that skill is a specialized skill, and it still is. And that skill can net you a lot of money. So, what this guy ended up doing was he had basically a clientele list of corporate execs, most likely, because he was downtown. He had a small office downtown, and lawyers. Okay. And you think about it, you gotta lawyers constantly need data because they're in the business of basically data. There's data to prove their client's innocence that is on a hard drive that from a computer that's just been failed, probably because of the hard drive for maybe 10 or 15 years. They just need the contents off of that hard drive. You know how to do data recovery on a failed hard drive. That skill can net you thousands and thousands of dollars. This guy was doing this regularly for a whole bunch of lawyers, different clients that needed constant work. They needed constant, and then word of mouth, spreads, and you got other people calling you up, you doing advertising. You got people all over just looking for, hard drive recovery. I mean, basically, this guy basically at the end of the day, he sold his business to I think he said, what's that staffing company? They actually bought out one of the contracts where I was working. Accenture. Yeah. He sold part of his lawyer clientele list and different clientels to Accenture, and they basically, they have specialized groups where they could just eat that up, because that's a lot of money. That's a lot of opportunity. If you got like a group, let's just say you got a group of 30 lawyers that they all know you, people from, he was downtown Chicago. People in the Chicago bar, they all know each other. And then, it's okay. Nicholas, he's got a client that's, facing a triple murder charge. He's got some data on a hard drive that's not working. The computer hasn't been working for years. He's gonna ask someone at one of his bar buddies. Then they're gonna be like, "Hey, well, we know this guy, Robert. He knows he's helped me many a times and helped other guys I know that needed hard drive recovery. It costs a little premium. It's about a little about 2 grand or so, or roundabouts, depending on how hard it is. But he's the one of the best. And then you're like, oh, what is his number? Blah, blah, blah. It's like nonstop. Okay. You know, you might even be called in for the government to be, consultant. They might need your help, get a hard drive, recovered. They might have outside vendors, that they reach out to because the government needs assistance. They have hard drives. Okay, what if the prosecutors? You think the prosecutors don't get failed hard drives and get data recovery done? I mean, you got a vendor. You're a vendor for federal government, and you get petitioned by the courts to do hard drive recovery. You charging the government probably like 15 to 30 thousand dollars per hard drive, and they're paying it because it's just tax money. And basically they're using your services to convict and prosecute individuals in the federal government. It's like, yeah, like that's how the federal government actually works. Like, they don't have just a whole bunch of forensic analysts or hard drive, repair analysts or technicians that do that. They have outside vendors that do that. And it's like that contract alone, that government contract, and mainly what you do is hard drive forensics, data recovery. It's a multi-million dollar contract. Because basically it's not necessarily that you getting that for the contract. You're basically getting a base rate of 15 to $15,000, at the minimum, for each hard drive that you recover. So it doesn't matter if you can get within a year. The federal government probably give you, depending on local areas, probably you work in certain districts, right? Like, the Chicago area is northern district. For the northern district alone, they might give you, in a year, they might give you probably like 150 to 200 hard drives that they need you to recover the data for trial, for prosecution. Well, you doing each one, you doing around $15,000. Okay, at the very least, you're doing, let's just say you're doing 10 a month. I mean, you making $150,000 a month off of just repairing hard drives because you got the specialized skill of you doing data forensics and hard drive recovery. That really is complicated, but it's possibly possible that you can learn. I actually was getting into it. Okay. I yeah, I was definitely into it. But the thing is that's just one of many skills. What if you know how to program? What if you know how to program, make programs, make software? You know how to code. I mean, one, you could get a job and you could make over $150,000 a year as a software developer, and you could make programs, like you could make software as a service. Like this one guy, I saw his video. He made a website, basically a portal, that's basically a software as a service. That, okay, if you the basically PDF editors had a problem, um when you download your bank statement, you weren't able to properly format that bank statement, so whatever entity you were sending that bank statement to can actually read it, and it can be formatted well. Well, this guy figured that problem out, and he basically created some type of solution to where you could upload on his platform, and it basically edits the basically financial statement properly, to where it could be readable and formatable and editable and all of that, right? So he figured that problem out. He created a solution for it. He, basically had to do editing and updating. He relied on his users or customers feedback, and he would just make edits as he goes, depending on the feedback. That business allowed him, I think he charged like, probably charged like $12 a month to join to be able to do as many bank statements as you need to do or whatever. Probably had other things that it did, like basically just maybe probably edit the PDF or convert it to another version, like Word or something like that. And it's like, yeah, like you get 100,000 people to join your platform that's $12 a month. Okay, yeah, that's a lot of money, right? That's pretty much um over $1 million. Okay. Basically, that's just 1 year. And it's like that's a specialized skill. You basically you figured out a problem and basically you solved it. I mean, even to be honest, a light bulb went on my head because I'm thinking about, like, basically I'm saying people have problems coming up with solutions. The oldest profession, right? Pimps understand men have a problem getting laid, or they have a problem picking up certain types of women. They have Men have a problem, which is, they need sex. They have to have it. They can't go without it. I mean, and what do? They bring women to the table to meet this old problem that have existed for thousands and thousands of years. I mean, like that's if that's don't like, that's just very basic. Even to be honest, dude, Bugatti, freaking Andrew Tate. That's what he did. He realized basically Andrew Tate maximized the power of simps and thirsty men that are very similar to the guys that will probably want to prostitute, but the younger generation, they got lazy, or they don't even want to deal with prostitutes. They want to talk to a chick online, or they want to have a chick flash them some, body parts or whatever. Like, he realized the new age of men and what they wanted. Like, OnlyFans makes billions and billions of dollars. He created, like, a cam back, like when camming is still big because you still got a lot of men that's what they like doing. They like sitting at home and watching chicks show themselves on a camera, and through a live stream. So, like, he maximized what a lot of simps basically want, and he made millions of dollars off of it. Then he basically got a lot of wisdom, a lot of philosophy, that he talks about, and he basically uploads videos, and he got a group of, young men primarily, or men that follow him, that pay a monthly fee, and it's like, it's just it's a lot to it. Like, he got a lot of dudes that pay him money. And he got rich off of the cam thing because it's a lot of desperate men. He knew it was a problem. The problem was a lot of desperate men that want to see a woman, or they want to conversate or see a woman on camera. And basically, other problems within that, because it's like, people, like, that's the whole even thing with drugs. Like, the reason why they say drugs sell themselves. Okay, there's a problem. There's a bunch of people that's addicted to drugs. Okay, solution: give them drugs. Okay, that's what the drug dealers are doing right now. Like, there's a problem. It's an ongoing problem. These people need drugs, and then some of them, they can't. They gotta have them. Crackheads, meth heads, heroin addicts, fentanyl addicts, whatever. Peel addicts. And it's like, basically, they gotta have it. The solution, give it to them. Once they give you money, like, that's you know that's how that goes. And that's why, a lot of drug dealers, like, make a whole bunch of money, because you got people that they have a problem, and they have a very severe problem. And the solution is that they need these drugs, right? You know, the Trump right now, he's cutting off drug supply lines in the basically Gulf of America. I guess you want to say now, since they changed it from Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. So he's around Venezuela and South America with the Navy, basically blockading certain things, and who knows what's gonna happen from one day to the next. I mean, I'm hearing talks about possible invasion in Venezuela. Uh, I'm not sure about any of that, but the thing is that you know there is people that sell drugs. I mean, it's still the cartels make a lot of money selling drugs because there's a problem, and it's a worldwide problem, but primarily right above them in the United States, people like to get high. People are addicted to drugs, cocaine and crack, meth, heroin. Now they mix fentanyl with heroin, so you can't say heroin without fentanyl. And what else? Pills and all kinds of stuff, right? Um, they still sell weed, right? Weed is still classified as a drug, which I don't agree with weed being classified as a drug. There's certain racial historical undertones when it comes to marijuana. So marijuana has a lot of bad stigmatization just in it being associated with illicit drugs. But the thing is that some people differ. Some people are conservative about all of them. They even include marijuana. But the thing is that they sell these drugs, right? And people have to have them. Most of the people have to have them. Like heroin addicts, they literally they go through withdrawals when they don't have basically heroin, which is basically like it's like their medicine. It's like they have to have the heroin, like the diabetic has to have insulin. It's a crazy thing. That's why a lot of heroin addicts, heroin dealers, historically, was some of the richest men. Some of the richest men in their time, the ones that sold a lot of heroin, because it was a drug that solved the problem. I mean, I'm not saying that you should sell a drug. I'm just saying, for example, solving problems is how people make the most money. You know, basically, when it comes to drugs, is the problem is these people they're addicted to these drugs, and the only solution is, well, it's actually not the only solution, but one of the solutions is supply them with the drugs. But here's the thing, and this is where I come into play because I'm an herbalist, right? Well, the other possible solution is to what? Get off of the drugs. And that's why I am very, very long about my herbs business. I enjoy my herbs business. Me personally, I use these, herbs and oils, and I, use them to benefit and make me the most, superior man I could possibly be on a day-to-day basis, and healthy, vibrant, and youthful as possible. That's what these things do for me. And me trying to channel that into other people is a little bit more complicated because you have to kind of sell things. Things don't necessarily sell themselves unless you have drugs or you sell drugs. But the thing is the solution that I am kind of wanting to kind of navigate a little bit more into is detoxification. Okay, you can actually, the solution is to go get drugs, right? But you have rehab centers that they make money off of, that problem. It's a lot of people with that problem. Now, a lot of people can't afford uh um a drug rehab treatment center. They can't afford it. It's usually associated with high net worth individuals as well as entertainers and celebrities, because a lot of entertainers and celebrities have addictions, right? So it's expensive. It costs money, right? So the thing is that is also a problem, right? And the solution is, a rehab center, right? People that own rehab centers. I mean, I saw one commercial of some dude in Malibu, California. That dude was rich. I can look at him and see, it's almost like, I mean, he looked like you could tell certain people that's rich. And I'm talking about people that's been rich for a long time as well. Like that dude on that commercial definitely looked the part and talked the part. Like he's like kind of old rich. Like he runs a rehab, he owns a rehab treatment center in Malibu. And you probably have other locations as well. And just think about it like this. How much do you think a rehab center in Malibu costs for treatment, right? I mean, God, that's probably the most expensive rehab treatment center in North America. I mean, it'd have to be, right? So, yeah, it's a solution, an expensive solution, but it's a opposite of solution of delivering the actual drugs to these people that are addicted to drugs. That's one treatment. Well, what if you tried to go cold turkey? And that's kind of where I come in, where I can possibly help you go cold turkey. I don't have a rehab center to send you, but I have these herbs. I have these detox pills, right? That you take these detox pills, they're gonna start to have some type of um ability for you to detoxify from the substances in your body, and hopefully over time, right, you would basically get off of these drugs. Your body would kind of reject the um pleasure sensors when it comes to drugs. Like, typically people are not trying to get high, right? They don't have a drive for it. They don't have some type of detoxification that they're hooked to these drugs, right? Well, you continue to take these detox herbs, maybe fast, maybe change your diet. Next thing you know, you don't have this addiction to drugs, right? You basically detox these harmful chemicals out your body. I mean, I sell detox herbs, right? And you kind of it's a way of you kicking the habit, which some people have. They tell you they kind of went cold turkey, right? Um, and it stopped, right? Now this it could be something that can help you go to cold turkey. Same with cigarettes, right? Well, I mean, that's where I come in, right? A solution to the problem that is a natural solution, right? It's like a natural um medical solution to kick the habit, to kick the drug habit, right? Or cigarette habit, alcohol habit, detoxification, right? Okay. owlsherbs.com. Okay, shameless plug. So yeah, I mean, that's a problem, right? you know that's a solution. That's a major solution. Okay, what if I sold so many herbs, right, so many detox pills, and then I came up with some type of pamphlet or some type of informational educational study on it or whatever, or even just did some workshops or whatever, you know um that could start messing up people's, you know, let's just say, I went to, or people just started to, take detox. They figured out how to detoxify themselves. You're gonna have some people that they just gonna want to get high. They like being a junkie. They like getting high. They actually like the pleasure of the drugs that they take. They don't, they really, you got a amount, you got an amount of people that are on drugs. They don't want to not be on drugs. They want to be on that for life. That's a handyman that I had that I shouldn't have involved myself with, but when you don't have money and you kind of out desperate, you involve yourself with people and they got bad habits, because that's why they're cheap. But that's the story that I've already told. But the thing is this: you got some people that are like him. Where he said he can get off of crack. He been smoking crack since the late 70s. He don't want to get off crack. He's gonna be a crackhead till he dies, which that is some people that's how they go out. But the thing is that for most people that I would say addicted to drugs, they want to actually get off of it. They don't like the fact of being a junkie. They're kind of semi embarrassed about being a drug addict. Well, if you got a whole bunch of people detoxifying themselves and getting off of drugs. Well, that a lot of people that solved that problem on that first side of solving the problem, the solution was to give these people an ample supply, lifetime supply of drugs. Well, you start cutting into their profits, then it's almost becomes a situation where, to be honest, the natural holistic movement was cutting into the drug pharmacies' profits or being a potential, you know, um, option, right? Which is a problem, right? So they started to target the natural holistic, movement. They really literally did. And they went to war with them. The latest thing that the pharmaceutical companies did, you know what they said? Well, if we can't beat them, we'll buy them. So now you got pharmaceutical companies, they own natural healing companies or natural herbs, company, natural, holistic medicine. They own it now. They just said, you know what? We can't beat them. We'll just buy it, right? Okay. So I mean, the thing is that those things are valid. That is valid. That is very possible. That could happen, right? And that is something that is possible though. People can, those are three possible solutions to that problem. But most the most likely is people gonna get the solution is just getting more drugs, getting as much drugs as they possibly can afford or get to at one time, and those people are going to deliver those drugs to them, right? um so they could buy the next Hellcat or the next pair of Jordans, they could pre-order them, right? So yeah, um that's just kind of how that works. I mean, you come up with some type of solution to problems, right? A problem is a lot of problems in the world. Like, like I'm gonna give you a problem that it probably would, if you had 10 million or if you can get $10 million in funding, ideally $100 million in funding to be even better. You there's a problem with housing in America. Okay. I just, and I'm this is still in the essence of being a millionaire. I mean, usually, like I say, oldest, the kind of fastest way, and this is the same that goes for being a billionaire. You solve a problem. You solve problems. You show me any business, that business, the reason why it's a multi-billion-dollar business like Amazon, eBay, whatever, it solves a problem or it solves multiple problems, right? It has multitudes of solutions, right? To two different problems, right? So the thing is like, for example, there's a housing issue in America and it affects most Americans besides, I mean, regardless of color, regardless of age. You know, it affects a lot of people. And that the one of those things is housing access. People don't everyone don't have housing access. Okay. It just for whatever reason, everyone just doesn't have housing access. And the reason is that basically um people don't have housing access is because basically the government doesn't allow everyone to get housing access. That's the first example. Um Blame the government, right? Because the government does have a lot to do with the reason why there's no is everyone doesn't have housing access. One is okay, basically in order to get or in order to now get a house, basically ideally through a mortgage company, right? Um, you know, reason why a lot of people have this problem now as far as this law was created was because of the 2008 mortgage collapse. Basically, they blame non-qualified borrowers for defaulting on mortgage loans that was packaged in the mortgage backed securities. Basically CDOs, um collateral debt obligations. Okay, they were packaged in these data files of different accounts and assets on file and loans attached to them and all of that. CDOs. Okay. So those all collapsed, right? It's like big meltdown, right? Worldwide economic collapse, right? So a gay guy and another gay guy in Congress created a bill called Dodd-Frank. And Dodd-Frank it meant well in a sense of now you have to be qualified for a loan. Okay. What does that mean? You have to have a 620 credit score to even apply for a loan. Without it, banks won't talk to you past get your credit up or get some type of, credit repair specialist or whatever to get your credit higher to 620 or 585 for FHA loan. If your credit is, let's just say you just somebody that's just kind of slow. You got some people that's just slow. Hell, I might be slow. I mean, you might, I don't know, include myself in this, right? They are high earners. They make decent money. They've been working since they're 16. They're just financially slow. They don't, you got some people that kind of they work blue collar jobs and they don't know how to, basically organize their credit. They don't know how to even open up their bills and manage their expenses. They're not married or something like that. I don't know. Or they, wife is slow with them. And they make a lot of money. Both them and the wife, they're middle class, working middle between working class and middle class, and they pull together about 80 grand. The wife or girlfriend she makes she works at a daycare and she makes about you know 30 grand a year. And the husband or boyfriend, he works at a machine shop and he makes about 50,000 a year, right? And that's more than enough to pay for a mortgage. And you know as far as they're already renting and they're paying $1,800 a month for a two-bedroom for them, and they got a couple kids. They make enough to pay for the rental obligation, right? That they have every month, right? But they don't know how to keep their credit in order. The credit is like at 540. they can't figure it out. They don't know how to figure out paperwork. Hell, they didn't graduate high school. They dropped out in the ninth grade and just started working because their family was really, really poor. They don't know how to fill out paperwork. They don't know how to dispute financial firms or collection companies. They don't know how to negotiate with collection companies. They don't really know how to communicate well, right? As well. They have a communication issue as well as a reading issue. They have basically a reading comprehension issue, but they make money. They go to work every day. They're on time. They're like employee of the month sometimes. And they don't know how to read and comprehend outside of that. They, really just very general and basic. And they don't know how to fill out paperwork. They don't know how to do anything when it comes to credit repair. They don't know how to just, and they use their credit all messed up. They kind of jacked up with their how they use their, credit, and they kind of live check to check sometimes because they do goofy stuff and they overspend on certain items and they don't follow budget. They just all over the place. But they earn enough to pay $1,800 a month. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. They usually earlier on time when they come to pay their rent to their landlord, you know, and it's like the whole point of this conversation is that person is fucked by Dodd Frank, literally with the strap on, because they qualify on the basis of they earn enough money to actually be able to be a homeowner. They actually, in deep down in their mind, they want to be homeowners. Their desires is to own a home with a picket fence and everything. They don't want to rent, but they just, they're kind of financially slow. And they don't, because of the Dodd Frank Act, they're, they can't get to that level of the credit requirements to get a home. And it's like that person is robbed of financial future of being a homeowner to actually owning the home one day because they have to become lifelong renters. See, that's the problem with that Dodd Frank. Now I'm sounding like a economist, but the point is that is leaving you. That couple that I just explained is a millions and millions of Americans, as well as Americans that are, they just struggle from time to time, right? And they do okay when it comes to finances. They are financially literate. They're, financially, they have it together. They just don't have the credit score to get that mortgage requirement to meet the requirements of the Dodd Frank Act. That person is also robbed of owning a home, and they qualify. They pay their rent on time. And another thing is that this is what I found out about um people that also are trying to get some type of long-term place or whatever. I remember when I was in the process of getting my house up to to be livable, and I had to basically live in a hotel for about a year, about close to a year. And I remember it was people there that they were looking to, basically they were trying to find a house. And when I say house, I meant a house with a mortgage on it, or basically they were trying to be homeowners in the sense of having a mortgage. They had an issue when it comes to that. They were stuck. You got people that live in hotels because they in a hotel costs more than apartment. So imagine a apartment is $1,800. A hotel would be probably $2,500 a month, right? Because it's not designed to be long term. It's just a temporary charge. You Let's say a homeowner, they're their house burned down. Well, they'll stay. The insurance company will pay the hotel $600 a week, for 4 months until the house gets renovated or whatever. And that's what that's for. Like, I mean, you got people that's living in there for a long time because they just don't have home access. They don't have access to a home. And that's the problem with the Dodd-Frank Act. And that's why it's like basically it needs to be to in order for people to have housing access, the current state of requirements is it shouldn't be credit based, more or less. It shouldn't be just solely based off credit. It should be based off of your earnings. So if let's say based off of your bank statement, they can see that you got a W-2 and or basically you got a job, you got employment coming in, right? And this is what some banks are doing. This is Chase. I was watching something where Chase have made it to where if you wanted to get like a business loan, you have to they use a different type of credit requirement. It's not credit based, it's basically cash flow based. So what Chase started to do was and a lot of people are going to follow this, a lot of other financial institutions are possibly going to follow this, is they're going to look at your cash flow instead of your credit. Because like basically credit is really good. Okay. I'm not gonna say credit is not good as a reference of showing you having a potentiality to pay bills on time. I'm not saying that that's not an ingenious system they come up with. It is, and it is pretty good. But let's just say, all right, credit is basically good based off of possible your future, like it's not a determinant, you're a good determinant of what, like, you can have really good credit and you can have no money in the bank. You can have no banking activity and just have really good credit. Well, that doesn't explain much if you just got good credit and you don't have cash flow. You could just be manipulating credit. Now, the thing is this, well, if you look at your basically cash flow, which is your banking activity, right? Your banking statements, anything that you have, deposits in, deposits out, right? So what Chase started to do is just, they're basing their loans off of your cash flow, and not looking at just credit. They're having a lower default rate because it's like, okay, well, if you're a business, show me business. Oh, okay. You doing 3 grand a month. Okay. Denied, right? Because you're not making that much money. You know, what Chase ended up doing was actually revolutionary, where basically you got these people that be listening to him 500 and all these other financials, basically guys that basically telling you to scam financial institutions for credit, that you probably not going to pay back and you're going to file bankruptcy. Well, Chase is revolutionary because it's basically a lot of people that have businesses, and including myself. I remember this, and I can note this as well. A lot of people have businesses on paper. They just basically paper businesses. This is a term that's probably going to be hijacked, and I want it to be. And this is basically something that is very ingenious, because the reason why I call them paper businesses is because basically they got a business on paper. They went and filed paperwork. You got people that file LLCs. They go start an LLC. It is just an LLC on name and name only. Like some of my businesses are pretty much will be considered paper businesses. Because I don't really make any money off of them. They're just products or startups or possible opportunities to basically do something in the future possible. But the thing is this, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and that's when it comes to when and this goes back to housing access, but I'll get there. The thing is this, um that's also a problem. Well, when you got, a lot of the people got LLCs and S corps and is proprietorships, and they got paper businesses. Well, your cash flow, it is going to show and expose the fact that you have a paper business, or because basically it basically it's like New Edition. The party's over. you know, it's time to get back to business. You know, the fan, basically waiting for you, and you know what I'm saying? It's like basically the party's over because these paper businesses, they were basically following these guys, right? To talk about, the credit play, you go to file credit, Navy Credit Union, and you get 100 grand, and if you use it for whatever you need. If you can't pay it back, file bankruptcy. Well, you know, basically Chase was like, well, we know these guys are just pretty much not legitimate businesses. They're just pretty much scamming the business system of you getting business credit, and they've they've got us. Okay, this is a problem. Well, we know how to solve it. Well, we show cash flow, have cash flow be more of a requirement than credit. Well, okay, show me your bank statement. Oh, you don't have, basically they probably wouldn't even file. They wouldn't even, you know, they wouldn't even file any application, because it's like, or if they did, it would be fraudulent, right? Then it's not so much they can't file bankruptcy; they'll basically have a federal case. And it's like basically they couldn't legally, because these people were doing was legally filing for business credit and getting money, right? Getting business credit, right? And basically they would default on the loan, and uh it's like basically, well, it's legal to do that. You can file for credit, and if you can't pay it back, okay, oh well. um in this case, you can't legally do that, because I mean, once it gets to, okay, you have to submit a bank statement. Oh shit, damn, I don't even have a business bank account. Damn, fuck. Or if obviously if you get a business bank account, you don't have any money in it. You got the initial deposit that you have in it. It's like $100, and then you spent most of it, on gas and Burger King. So you don't have any business activity. Okay, denied. So basically the party's over. And that's how that should be when it comes to mortgage requirements. They should have it being based off of your income, not your credit. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's where the problem is, where housing access becomes, now you have a house being a luxury, which houses, I don't know if houses ever were quote unquote luxury, but they're making them a situation, they're making housing access, and Canada is having this issue as well, where housing access now is a luxury, right? So you have to have money and credit, or credit and a little money, right, to qualify for this luxury item, which is this fixed up, you know, put together house in this nice community, or this decent community, with this decent old house that, is inflated in price, whatever. In order to get this luxury item, you have to have the credit requirements, which is this credit score. And they look at your income as well, right? But they look at credit more than income. Okay. The credit comes before the income, but they look at both, but they look at the credit before they actually look at your income. And the thing is that Well, you know, that's going to leave a lot of people out of the housing market, right? You won't qualify unless you have a VA loan or whatever. You won't qualify. Now NACA has solved this problem. Not NACA is a group that is worked on trying to solve this problem. Okay, it takes a long time to actually go from the process of being an applicant, working with NACA, which is a nonprofit organization, to actually becoming a homeowner. It might take you a year or two because they do workshops and all. It's a lot of stuff that you got to do with NACA. You kind of got to go through a little bit of red tape, a lot of red tape actually. So, but NACA it has a solution to this issue. They they kind of try to help you. Okay, they give you some type of advocacy to help you become a homeowner. They also give you funding once you meet their requirements. Okay, NACA has solved this has come up with a solution to this problem. Well, I'm proposing a solution to this problem, which is, the Senate or House of Representatives should come up with a bill to make mortgage requirements be based off of your income and income only, not your credit. And what banks will have to do is base things off of your bank statements. Now you're gonna have people that do fraudulent bank statements, but basically people are doing things fraudulently with credit as well. So the thing is that those are federal offenses. You get caught, you got federal time. Okay. People been doing federal time for mortgage fraud for decades. Now, the thing is that most people will qualify for a house because most people work and they most likely already have a house, but you got some people that they just not good with finance. It's a lot of people that they're just not good with money. They're not good with they're not good with controlling their finance, personal finance. They're just not good at it. Now, does that make them bad people? No, they're not good with managing finances. In their own personal finance. Now, they make money. They could make $5,000-6,000 a month, but they are forced to rent because they don't have any housing access. Now, this is another possible solution, and this is what I'm working on in the future. And basically, this is how I bought my house that I recently sold. Um, I got some bands sitting somewhere. But basically, you open up some type of business, and there is businesses where you have seller finance, and it don't probably you could start off with $1 million locally and then expand regionally. And of course, you got real estate laws in each state. In each state is different, but basically, you offer seller financing to people and base it off their combination of their credit and their income. There are companies that already have this. I know Texas has this. I've seen this in Texas, which is great for Texas that they do have owner financing in Texas quite often. I mean, like there's probably only like they're based out of Texas where they only do Texas properties. But yeah, like Illinois, I don't know of any that do that. Okay. In certain places probably they don't have that a lot of owner financing opportunities. Well, when you open that up and you give the and you possibly have some type of joint venture with a credit union or a bank where you offer also funding. You give the opportunity for people to get funding. And if you even do it well, you can just basically you can basically co- uh, combine the owner financing contract with funding. And you could easily do it. All you have to do is you'd have to have project managers in certain regions, and they will oversee fixing up the property. You're not just gonna just give the property owners money to fix their own house up. That's not how you're gonna do it. You're gonna have to, have project managers oversee the project. So let's say, it's very easy to do, because basically what you'll be doing, you'll be buying houses. You'll be buying houses, ideally wholesale, or basically slightly lower to retail, or basically wholesale houses. Houses from investors and maybe even banks or whatever, auctions. And once you acquire these properties for cheap, you'll basically offer them to your portal, or your real estate portal, your website, as owner finance homes. And you basically will, like, say you get a house, let's just say in Chicago, Illinois, for you get it for $58,000. Well, you'll sell the house for probably $95,000 with owner financing. And you basically, what you could do is, you could have the owner financing price, and then what you could offer is up to $100,000 for rehab funding. And you could have it to where it's basically, written in the owner financing agreement, basically where, instead of, okay, so for the house that's 98,000, they would need to put at least 10% down. So, that's like $9,800. So, I mean, 9,500 dollars, right? So, there might be some extra closing costs or something like that. But anyway, whoever could afford to, basically, you have income requirements, and credit requirements as well. And it's lower than that Dodd-Frank bullshit. So it's like, basically, you got to have at least a 540 or a 500 or something like that, and a credit score, and it's like, basically, it's more based off of your income, because basically their income requirements you know is based off of what you can get approved for. Like, if you only make 50 grand, and you only been working a year, well, you can only qualify for a house that's, you know 60 grand or something like that, or 40 grand, for a range of 45 to $60,000 is what you can, qualify for, right? And you have to have the required down payment. But with 100,000 in funding, you can basically fix the house up, and then you'll have to pay, like an extra, like $500 a month or something like that, and on top of what you would have to, pay back for your seller financing agreement. And basically, like, long time ago, they used to call this getting a house on contract. 'Cause that's actually how a lot of black people got their home in Chicago, and as well as probably a lot of other places, because real estate, basically, the United States was racism was allowed in the United States. The 50s, 40s, 60s, pe- people could be white people could be racist and get away with it, right? Legally get away with it, right? So what they did with real estate was, they made it to where, and they also made housing covenants to where black people could not buy in certain neighborhoods. They couldn't buy a house at all. And then the banks doubled down. They said, well, we won't lend to these certain zip codes because we know black people live at these zip codes. So you won't qualify for a loan or home loan. And even based off of you having gainful employment, and you could be working for, the car factory like Ford or something like that, and you could make, your wife could be working and making money. You just don't qualify based off of the fact that you live in this particular zip code. So they call that redlining, right? So you couldn't basically people couldn't make they couldn't buy houses. If you were black, it was hard to buy houses. So what happened was in the Chicago, in this, I'm literally, I'm well, I ain't gonna, well, yeah, actually, that's how my grandfather bought his house. He had to buy it on contract, and my grandfather was a successful entrepreneur. I mean, he became a millionaire pretty much, and he had to buy his house on a contract. So what happened was, a lot of Jews, they made a lot of money with this particular buying houses or selling houses on contracts. They used to call it getting a house note, like getting a house on time, right? So you get credit on the house. So a lot of Jews, a lot of white people, they made a premium amount of money by selling these houses on contract. So what they would do is they would overcharge you for this house that if you got with a bank, it would be a lot cheaper, but you will end up owning the house. And then some of the people that had these contracts, white homeowners that sold these contracts, they were basically fraudulently scamming the residents. What they would do is, you know, they would not keep up with the accounting records of when you paid. They would make it hard for you to prove that you paid for this house. So you would end up being in a situation where you had uh, a hard time proving ownership. So the homeowner would just evict you from the property, and get you out of the property while you had an active contract to pay this house off, and you were making your payments. So they were doing a lot of backhanded, things because they knew these people couldn't get in a home mortgage. They couldn't get a house the traditional way, so they had to get a house on contract, right? Or on a note, right? So this became pretty popular. A lot of, like I said, a lot of Jews used to live on the south side of Chicago. This was a money source, a money opportunity for them to, capitalize on, and they did big. Because black, that's how blacks became homeowners. And then basically all of a sudden, even with these housing covenants, I think they made it more difficult. I don't know really how the housing covenants work, but uh the black people bypassed, the mortgage companies, and bypassed also the real estate brokerages to get these houses. And then all of a sudden the neighborhood, has a few black homeowners, or residents, right? And they would just start moving out of the neighborhood. Okay, they would move out of the neighborhood. Then, this is, white people make money off of white flight. Okay, everybody actually in real estate makes money off of white flight. White flight is a real estate term for white people leave in a particular neighborhood, then it usually turns black, or other minority, or like Hispanic. Okay, okay, white, but is the term of white people leave in a particular real estate area is called white flight, and that happened in Chicago, where you know, originally they thought that if they make it where they can't get a home loan, and they can't buy in particular neighborhoods because the real estate seller or agent wouldn't sell the property, and then the broker wouldn't, the seller and the agent will not sell the property. So basically they would annex this community to be non-black. Well, that was a solution to these white people's problem, that they didn't want these blacks in. Well, for every for every person's problem or solution, there's a problem, or wherever there's a solution, there's a possible problem, and wherever there's a problem, there's a solution. Well, these white people, that they wanted to get rich too, they don't, and you don't. One of the ways you get rich is you kind of don't follow the rules, right? You don't follow what everybody else do, or you make money off of what somebody else does, right? Or doesn't do, right? So white folks figured out, okay, well, banks won't give you any loan. Well, I'll just sell you this property. You give me, okay, I'm gonna sell this property to you for uh back in, I'm thinking about 1960s, 1950 prices. $5,000 for this house. The house would sell for like only probably what, $2,500. Well, he just over exorbitantly amount he would sell this property, and then on contract it would be, he got to pay $50 a month for 10 years. And they figured out, okay, well, all right, well, these banks won't lend to these guys. And we know, they know why. And the real estate agent won't sell them the house. Well, you know, I'll just get these houses, the ones in the neighborhood that's not, really well kept or well to do, and I'll just sell them to the Negroes. and a lot of white folks got really, really, really rich off of bypassing the status quo. Okay, bypassing this solution. Okay, and basically blacks moved in, then the white people left, and then of course, I mean, it's 20, what, yeah, about 40 years later, 1980, they came up with the Federal Mortgage Act, the Federal Housing Act, where you can't discriminate off of the sale or ownership of a home based off of someone's racial identity. That became a federal crime, or violation. Then they came out with the Federal Mortgage Act, to where you cannot be discriminated based off of uh your particular ethnicity or color. And then it became, a lot of black people flooded into the real estate market. They start buying real estate and having mortgages. Um, and they can't be denied based off of the fact that they're African American or Afro American or Negro, right? Uh, and then, basically that still started to happen. I mean, there's been lawsuits. The latest lawsuit was Wells Fargo, were denying qualified Latino and African American mortgage applicants. Okay, they paid the fine, they got fined for it, and they're probably still doing it. But the thing is that it's a federal offense if you get caught doing that. Okay, most people are not, banks and whatnot are not doing that. Right, that's bad press. That's bad news. Right. Um, but the thing is that, yeah, at that time, people couldn't buy a home. They had to, a lot of black people had to buy a house off of basically seller financing. Well, that if you widespread, I think if you put $10 million into a company that offers seller financing like that, man, you would make an exponential amount of money because literally there's a problem. And it's kind of fucked up because this kind of how government can jack you up, right? Government is a big deal, right? So literally what I'm saying is not it's I'm not making this up. It's not it hasn't come up. I mean, this is not something that's new. I'm not making this up. Literally, Dodd-Frank is literally one of the major reasons why people have housing access issues in America. I mean, unfortunately, I wish it was not the case, but unfortunately it is. And the fact that that's the case, unfortunately, it's a situation to where now it's not based off of being an ethnicity. Every a white guy in a trailer park, a white guy in middle class America is affected by this. Any and everyone is mostly affected by this that need housing. And they can make a whole bunch of money. They could make $75,000 a year, $100,000 a year. And because they don't have the credit requirements, they have to go sleep in a hotel and pay a weekly rate or an apartment somewhere that they really don't want to live and listen to their next door neighbor bang out their old uh you know wife every night for the next 12 months or however long it takes you to get um another apartment. Or just think of just the word. This is why I do not like apartments. What if your next door neighbor smoked crack? I mean, literally, smoking crack through the fucking walls, and you next thing you know, you a crackhead. Oh my God. that's that's the worst thing that could happen, right? I mean, like, it could be. I mean, just all kinds of stuff, man. You don't know what's going on the other side of the wall, man. Like you living with all of these strangers, just boxed up on top of each other. Like, oh my God. But the thing is that yeah, that's your reality because Dodd Frank. I mean, mainly. I mean, that's it's not just that, but yeah, like you can rebuild your credit. Like you can reach out to me, you can, basically you could do some steps to rebuild your credit. You can legit do it. It might take you a year, might take you 6 months, but everybody doesn't know how to do it. I know it sounds goofy when it comes to credit repair. People like credit repair, credit repair. Everybody can do that. But it's some people, man, that they just not good with like writing and reading and filling out forms. It could just be that. Like they just need you to process some paperwork. And that's really literally credit repair. All credit repair is mostly is processing paperwork and waiting and dealing with and working on a plan and sticking with it for the most part. Setting accounts up properly, education, financial literacy. Those are all of the things that make up credit repair or credit, because you have to be educated because you got in a situation first because you you were you weren't financially literate. Now it is some people that are quote unquote financially literate or could be more financially literate. These people are narcissists or people that they are either delusional or they have some type of like narcissism where they believe that they're superior, and any advice or proper instruction um is beneath them. You could, it's basically your their ego won't allow them to not believe that they're a multimillionaire with unlimited credit lines and they can buy whatever they want, but they really make $50,000 and they depend on child support for help. But you can't tell them that they're a rich celebrity that or that has unlimited credit requirements, because in their head that's where they at, but the reality escapes them. But the thing is the whole point is you got people that have those two problems. You have they either financially literate and they just don't have the help to be educated. They don't have the stick witness, or just don't have people in a circle to help them out. And then you got people that just, like I said, arrogant, egotistical narcissists that just whatever advice comes in, it's beneath me. What are you talking to the queen and giving her advice? Did I ask for your advice? Like, you got people like that. You're not gonna be able to help those people. The narcissists. The narcissists are gonna, they're gonna have to deal with their own demise, right? But the people that do need help, they just need somebody to just like, it's like dealing with your grandparents, like filling out some paperwork, opening up the mail, you know, processing some type of budget, having some type of financial system, sticking with it, basically being organized, maybe using a little bit of Excel, Microsoft Excel. Um, just kind of keeping goals, keeping financial statements, and having some type of like storage for your files or important files, storing them away properly. And I mean, just being educated, man. A lot of it is just financial literacy, just how to manage money, how to keep some type of organized system, how to save. Some people just need to, you gotta hold their hand, you know what I'm saying, and help them out. And it's a lot of people that need that. You'll be surprised. It's a lot of people, man. It's people that are laborers at a factory. They just laborers. That's all they really know. They don't really know that much about managing a budget or keeping things organized, but they make money. They work in a union and they make $38 an hour. Okay. I mean, I know that's not like people in California that be listening to me in the northeastern corridor and the West Coast be like, what the fuck is this bum ass dude talking about $38 an hour? Like, I, you know, uh, houses in the hood are $1 million, on South Central, what I'm saying? New York, you can't get an apartment for less than a million or half a $1 million, a freaking apartment, one bedroom, And it's like, yeah, like I'm in the Midwest. You can get a house, like even now, you can get a house for 20, you can get a bando for 20 bands and put about 70 or 60 into it, and it can be fully renovated. And you all of out of like eight, you ain't even got to $100,000. They got them. A lot of them. This just how it is. It's just real estate is inexpensive in the Midwest. So that was the way I bought real estate. That was how I was able to own real estate. That was the only way, because it was the hardest way. But you can buy a bando and rebuild it. Basically, what it is you doing what real estate developers already do. That's what real estate investors do. They buy abandoned properties and they fully renovate them, and then they resell them, usually, or they might rent them out, and it's basically that's all you're doing. You're doing because what people are trying to get a mortgage for or get housing access for, they're trying to get housing access for houses that are basically move in ready. And basically that's what people tend to buy, right? But you, in order to buy this house, you have to get past that Dodd-Frank Act. And that Dodd-Frank, that I'm telling you, that Dodd-Frank Act got millions of people that are, basically they can't, they're not homeowners, and they qualify to be homeowners in the sense of they can pay for a mortgage, they can pay for taxes and escrow, right, and principal and interest, but they just don't have the requirements to meet the Dodd-Frank Act. That's the problem with that particular problem. And the solution is a multitude of things, right? There's a lot of solutions out there, but the thing is housing access is a problem. Is If you think about a lot of things, like you just think about you know problems in a sense of like, what problem can I solve? What problem is out there that I could possibly come up with a solution according to my skills, my know-how, and everything, I know how to do. And that's where you come up with different ideas and everything. Like me, like I figure, okay, I'm pretty good at trading. So what I did was I started just trying to micro focus myself on trading, trying to, come up with good scans, good fundamentals, and making sure, I set my stop loss. And that was just me focusing on, okay, just the solution to my problem is maximizing on the skill set that'll make me the most money. And that's trading. I have a skill set, maximize on that because that's the most profitable. So that's what I do. I just focus on what I'm good at, put my resources to where I'm good at, and try to make the most I can make. And try to, I use a little bit of AI. Okay, I use AI to come up with Python code to basically, like, I'm at the point where I have a have a market scanner that comes up with different market stocks that I could possibly make some money off of. And uh I use other things too, but mainly that. And that's just the start. I have further ambitions, but those require more capital. But that's the whole thing is that, all right, that's what I'm good at, that's the most profitable, that's what I focus on. you know that's the solution to my also problem of, okay, being having to work corporate jobs and jobs in general, right? Okay, more I trade, the more I make, the more I can invest in other things, and I don't have to work a particular job or be an employee or whatever, right? So that's just what I do. But I mean, there's a lot of problems, and if you come up with different solutions, skill sets to provide certain solutions to people's problems, like that's how you make, it's the easy way to make $1 million over time, right? Whatever that problem is. So I mean, you might believe like it's so impossible. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, it is hard to be, quote unquote, become a millionaire. I Don't get me wrong, but for most people, the only way you're gonna get there is momentum. I mean, like literally that, and that's why my book is very, very good, like very effective. That's why I made the post to, plug my book. I need to start doing that more. Um, you start off with $1,000. and then you try to double it, to 2,000. Like you might, sell some shoes or sell some stuff you don't need, in each step you get a reward. And basically, take 2,000 and go to 4,000, try to get to 4,000, right? Take that money and try to get to $4,000, do whatever you got to do, flip a car, sell a car or something. And then you just keep going. Okay. Now and then you get a reward. I mean, whatever it is, like don't be cheap about it. You just pay it and be happy to pay it. Like if you, whatever you want your reward to be, whatever that is, and be proud to pay it because that's you earn that reward. Because see, the reward just kind of helps you. It gives you some motivation. It gives you like a drive, a goal, like some type of fulfillment that you accomplish this goal. So that's why rewards are very important. Like even in stocks, like when you trade and you make a profit, well, you should get some type of return. You should get like, uh 50%, or something like that. Make a 50% withdrawal, and you, whatever it is, I don't care if it's 15 bucks you made, or 50, because 15 bucks initially will start to 150 or 1,500, you know to 15,000 a month, and it's like, yeah, you learn how to do that, and you give yourself some type of positive reinforcement, right? So like basically, you get to 8, then 16, right? And then you just keep trying to go up and go up higher, right? Higher, 32, and just, pretty much get as high as you possibly go. And you building up momentum over time. You learning things, you building on what you learn, and you just basically, just keep going. After a while, I'm gonna be honest, like once you get past, once you get in, like, let's just say past, let's just say 16, once you get to like $16,000, you gonna have to start selling bigger things, like you gonna probably have to sell like a house or a mobile home or something like that. So it just gets more complicated. I mean, obviously, once you get to like 120,000, or I think it was like 128,000. Obviously, at that point, you probably selling, like, might be selling some trucks or automobiles, or you're selling some mobile homes, land, or maybe wholesaling properties or something like that, or selling properties, fixer uppers, because you could sell fixer uppers, and make way more money than what you sold it for. Like if you just buy a fixer upper and then just do like certain major repairs, like maybe, or just demoing the property to get it like to where it's ready for renovation, man, or even getting services on. You get services on and stuff, get it to where it's habitable. Man, you could like buy a house, let's just say for like, let's just say 15,000. You could probably within 30 days, you could put it, or let's just say 60 days, you could put it on the market for like 35. And all you did was get like a dumpster, probably put like 5,000 in it, and just got it structurally sound, got the garbage and debris out of it, got some, maybe some landscaping, got some trees down, did a little landscaping, and it ain't did take you number like 5,000, and you basically put it back on the market for 35, or might even put it on the market for 45 or 50, and you basically you selling it as a, a property that's ready for renovation. It might have the water on, it might it might have the heat on or the gas on, the electricity on or whatever. So it's ready for renovation and might not cost that much to do that. Or if it does, you could just demo the property and get it cleaned out to where, and then board it up properly. Because some properties, a lot of properties in Gary, Indiana, they just not boarded up properly. So they just end up, being, basically nature taking over, and but the thing is like, yeah, that's what some people do. They just get the house to where it's kind of where it's ready to be, renovated, and they don't fix the property up or nothing. They just put it right back on the market and sell it for more. Like, if they got it for 10, they try to sell it for like 25, something like that, and make a quick profit. So it's like, yeah, you doing stuff like that once you get on that level. Like once you get on a level where you making like you've saved over 100 grand. Yeah, you're gonna have to flip bigger things to make, you have to invest more money, right? To make it to a higher level. To even get to that level, you're gonna have to do that, right? I'm already on one house, I'm trying to I'm trying to find some more. But it's hard, because housing prices are way more expensive when I bought my house versus now. So it's like it's probably double X or 10X the price of houses. So mm, yeah, but I mean the whole problem, the whole thing is coming up with a solution to a problem, and that tends to be profitable. That's where the profit is. So that's why it's like basically become a professional, right? PRO, right? So you solve problems, you by coming up with solutions, and you make a profit from that. So it's like problem uh plus solution equals profit, you know. So basically you come up with a solution to a problem, and you make profit, you know. And that's basically the order of things to wait till you make $1 million or more. That's even the same formula to become a billionaire. Same formula. Okay. So anyway, I'm gonna get up off of here. I gotta actually get to work tomorrow, or today, later today. So let me get up off of here.